Good morning. It is February 1st, 2018. I'm Nick from CWE of ResearchFantasy.com. I'm here to bring you my favorite NHL DFS value plays for the day. Big slate here tonight. Really excited. Love big slate hockey because I feel like the cash lines, especially in single entry tournaments, can be a little bit more friendly. Same with really level entry, unless you get a chalk situation on a team stack that happens to hit. So, I talked a little bit about strategy in the previous video, and I'll do it again here just in case people were only concerned about value plays, really unsure as to how to weigh the DFS market on YouTube for NHL, so we'll see. But I typically if it's a 3-game slate, I'm probably going to be more likely to very heavily stack the 2 or 3 lines that I feel best about in those 3 games. 4 to 8, we start talking about a situation where I'm reducing my stacking. Maybe I'll take like 1 3-player stack, or maybe 2 3-player stacks from teams I really like, and then just put single players around them. When we get into this situation where we're like 9 and up, I almost exclusively try to go with one-off plays because it's going to be very hard. If you look at the scoring for the NHL, if you look at the box scores at the end of the game, even though guys are on the same line, you could have a guy that has 3 goals and 6 different people contributed to the assists. So the guy who scored the goals did great. But if you have 2 of his line mates, let's say you went with Sean Couturier and I'm going to butcher names, don't worry, I don't know, and Claude Giroux and Shane Gostisbehere. Let's say you went with those guys and Couturier, let's say Giroux, because I know how to say that. Giroux scores 3 goals, but the other 2 guys only get an assist, and maybe Gostisbehere has a blocked shot and the center has 2 shots on goal. Well, in all likelihood, that's really not going to be enough on such a big slate to get you to where you need to go, especially in multi-entry large field tournaments. It might work out in cash games, but if you do that, and this happens pretty much regularly, where the line just gets shut down, and now you've got 3 players from a line that gets shut down. If you've kind of spread yourself over 5 to 6 games and maybe, took 2 players from your favorite situation and played them, and then kind of single players in good situations around them, I've found that to be, the most successful. I see a lot of times, I'll enter single entry tournaments on a big slate like this. The other night, somebody had Edmonton, I think, stacked, and 5 players from that team, and it didn't do anything. And when they don't do anything, you don't win any money. So I kind of think that that's a fair way to look at it. The less the amount of games, the more you can isolate to a team. The more games, the more you want to try to find individual players. All right, I think we did a good job in our first video kind of putting together some very high dollar skaters who I think there's a lot of safety or upside with. So let's kind of take maybe a little bit more risk here, or at least find some guys that are cheap but in good situations. Let's start things off with Adam Henrique, 5,300 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. Former Devil, now playing with the Ducks, and they will be taking on the Ottawa Senators. They're on the road, so typically the Senators are probably going to work hard to take the first line out of the game. If you're somewhat unfamiliar with hockey, this is where the home field advantage, home ice advantage really actually plays in, because the home coach kind of gets the better line changes, if that makes sense. He can react to what the opposing team does on the ice. So typically you're going to try to isolate your best defensive line on the team's top offensive line to try to mitigate the potential for damage. So that usually leaves the secondary lines on the road in a better position because they're going up against weaker defensive units. Henrique could very well see, the 4th line potentially of Ottawa or the second line, and I'm not really convinced that I love any of the defensive lines for Ottawa, to be honest with you. So I think this is a position where Henrique can continue the strong play he's been showing. Since 117, he's had at least 2.5 points, and in 4 of those games, he's had at least 5 fantasy points on DraftKings. So I think you've really got a lot of upside packed in here at this price. He's someone that I'm really not afraid to use in my cash games or tournaments, and you get that kind of cool benefit. Third, he's on the third line center, but he's on the first power play unit, so that's always big too. He's going to be with their heavy hitters when they're at the man advantage. Next up, I want to go to probably my favorite defenseman this year, and the guy who's made me so much money but is now becoming so popular that I don't want to share him with everyone else, and that's Darnell Nurse, 4,700 on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Coming into the season, there was definitely more of a focus on Oscar Klefbom and what he was bringing to the table for Edmonton, but Nurse has really been, he's a strong I-Corsi player. He puts up a lot of shots, gets a lot of block shots, and that's what I mentioned in the article. This is a great play, cash games, tournaments alike, because he's going to take shots and he's going to block a lot of shots. So he could put together 3 to 4 points without actually having to be involved with the offensive side of the game at all. But if he happens to score a goal, or if he happens to be involved with an assist or 1 or 2 of those, you're talking about a guy who can go from 3 to 4 points to 8 to 10 points really quickly. So there's a lot of baked in upside. It's a little bit confusing why his price is still so low. I'm not a real big guy for matchups. I tend to kind of care more about how a team is playing. But they are at home, which is always a plus, and they are taking on Colorado, who I think is going to be a little bit mentally defeated with Nathan MacKinnon being on the shelf for a little bit. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to roll to roll Darnell Nurse out there, 4,700. We always like saving at the defensive position, so I think he's a great way to do that tonight. Last up, I want to look at Jason Spezza, 4,900 on FanDuel, 4,300 on DraftKings. Somewhat like Henrique, he's on the road. He's plays for Dallas, which, I think you probably know that if you're listening to a DFS video, but whatever. They're at Arizona. If you've played NHL DFS, Arizona, Buffalo, these are teams that we've been targeting for generations now. I mean, I think these guys have been targets for NHL DFS players since the beginning of DFS. So we do want to look at matchups like this. I mean, again, I do think it's a situation that Arizona is going to try to sell out to stop Ben, Radulov, Seguin. Will that be successful or not? I'm not entirely sure, but I do like Spezza, second line on the road. I think he'll get some pretty advantageous matchups here. I like the fact that he's getting power play time. Would much prefer that he's on the top power play line. He's not. I'll take that second power play time, because power play time's power play time. It's time with the man advantage. If the first unit can't happen to get it done, he's in good position with the second unit to do it. So really like what I see there. I really have a lot of confidence in these value plays today. At least 2 of the 3 are going to go in my cash games, and that would be Henrique and Nurse. I will probably end up landing with Spezza just because his price is too good to pass up, and I really want to work to get guys like Hall and Eichel in there for sure. So that'll wrap it up for today. Once again, our 3 favorite value plays: Adam Henrique, Darnell Nurse, Jason Spezza. Thanks for watching. It would be great if you like this video, if you could give us a thumbs up. If you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, helps to bring in a little extra money. We don't charge for anything at this point on Research Fantasy. Really haven't. We did a little CFL premium content. We might do that again this year, but for the most part, we're giving away everything we do. So any contribution you can make by liking, subscribing, so that we can continue to pull in a little bit of advertising money is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching. Hopefully these help you win some extra money tonight, and we'll see you again tomorrow.